Appreciate the Lord tonight.
Amen.
Like Brother Harold, I have enjoyed song service. Amen. And I thought I like good singing.
Yes.
And I listen to it a lot, driving down the road or at home. And but I thought I love anointed singing.
Right.
Amen. There is a difference. Well, Sister Kathy and I were listening to Brother Ryan Ross's church online one night, and they sang a song, and I don't even remember the song or who sang it, but they were singing it, and it's a song that I like to hear. The person that sang it done a real good job, and they were just talented at singing it, and a professional singer. And that church, Brother Austin started singing it, and I was sort of iffy. I thought, man, I've heard them sing that song, and they done such a good job with it. But after a while, that lady that was singing got to crying.
Yeah.
And the anointing began to fall on her. And no, she might have not been as eloquent as the professional singing, but it went far and beyond
Right.
anything that she had
Right.
ever done, simply because of the anointing
Right.
of the Holy Ghost. I appreciate the Lord. If you would turn your Bibles to the book of Acts, chapter 3. Got just a simple thought on my mind tonight, and nothing just extraordinary or anything like that. It's just a simple thought that the Lord laid on my heart. And Acts chapter 3, we'll start reading with verse 1. It says, Now Peter and John went up together into the temple at the hour of prayer, being the 9th hour. And a certain man lame from his mother's womb was carried, whom they laid daily at the gate of the temple, which is called Beautiful, and asked of alms of them that entered into the temple, who seeing Peter and John about to go into the temple, asked an alms. And Peter fastened his eyes upon him, with John said, Look on us. And he gave heed unto them, expecting to receive something of them. Then Peter said, Silver and gold have I none, but such as I have give I thee. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up and walk. And he took him by the right hand and lifted him up. And immediately his feet and ankle bones received strength. And he leaped up, stood, and walked, and entered with them into the temple, walking and leaping and praising God. And all the people saw him walking and praising God. And they knew that it was he which sat for alms at the beautiful gate of the temple. And they were filled with wonder and amazement at that which had happened unto him. Thank you for standing for the reading. Well, this is very familiar scripture. And thought the Lord just laid a little thought on my heart, on my mind. And preachers get thoughts different ways, I guess. But I'm just simply praying about the service tonight.
Yeah.
And the Lord just simply spoke to me and said, exceeding our expectations. That's all he said to me. And I began to think about that.
Yeah.
Exceeding our expectations. I thought, have you ever been excited about something and it turned out to be better than you thought it was going to be?
Right.
I thought, I remember, I've had a lot of things happen to me that was exciting. I got married one day. That was exciting to me. Just to think that somebody thought me handsome enough to marry me, Brother James. That was exciting enough. And I remember the wedding day and the things, and we're looking forward to our life together. And I have to say, Brother Harold, it's been better than I expected. It was beyond my expectations. Yeah, we've had ups, we've had downs, but it's been good. And then I remember when we was expecting our first child, and I thought, and then the second child came by, and being a parent was great. It but it had its ups and its downs. And then I can remember being a grandparent for the first time. And I thought, man, that has really exceeded my expectations. It's something I became a grandparent young. I was just 40-year-old when Colin was born. I was excited about it. And then whenever Kendi was born, I thought I was there at the hospital, and Sister Laura was back there, and I was back there in the room, and I seen things was progressing, and I started to go out, and the nurse said, if you want to pull that curtain and stand back there, you're welcome to. And I didn't know how Laura felt about it, and she said I could. And so I stayed back there behind the curtain. And I remember when I heard that little baby cry, this pawpaw began to cry. I began to shake and cry. And Sister Kathy came around the curtain, and we embraced one another, and we cried, and because it was beyond our expectations. I was expecting to be there in the waiting room and them come out and say the little baby's born, but I never expected to hear that child. And I heard both of my children make their first cry, but I never expected to hear my grandchild cry for the first time. And as they brought it over there and laid it under the light and began to work with it, I stood there and I watched them. I thought it exceeded farther anything that I expected to happen to me that morning when I got out of bed. Right. And I thought, you said, well, that's carnal. Yeah, it is. But that's all we live in life. We're human beings. And I thought, I don't go a lot of places, don't do a lot of things. And I thought, but those things exceeded anything that I thought they would ever be. Right. And I thought then there's those things that sometimes we wait for. We're anticipating, and then whenever they happen, you wonder, where was the thrill of it? What happened here? It wasn't exciting as we thought it ought to be. Yeah. But not one time has any experience with God ever not been what I thought it should have been. Yeah. I thought there's just different things in our lives that we do. I thought, I like to hunt, and I never will forget the first deer I shot. I mean, I was excited about it. And, and Sister Kathy, I like to turkey hunt. Don't particularly like the turkey. Want to kill it. But since I do, I eat it. And Sister Kathy said, well, it's just, I enjoy it. It's just something you get out there, and it's just something you do. And all of those things that we enjoy in life. And we bring those things in, and we find enjoyment in it. But I thought there's greater things in God. Right. If we can just learn to give over to them. And I thought, as we looking back at our text here that I read, and we find this lame man, and as I begin to think about this man, the Bible says, whom they laid daily at the gate of the temple. Right. And I thought, in my mind, I began to think about, this man probably looked forward to every day somebody carrying him to this gate beautiful and laying him there to beg for alms. Right. I mean, because he was crippled. I don't know about you, but if I've been in the house for a long time, well, Steve, I get looking forward to getting out of the house. So no doubt this was probably the highlight of this man's day. To get someone to carry him out. The Bible says they carried him. And they laid him at the gate. And so he came out expecting, no doubt, and hopeful to get enough money to meet his daily needs. Uh-huh. And then tomorrow, he's going to repeat it again. Right. Because he's begging for alms. And he's not like the panhandlers that they got out in Lexington, if you read the news, and are bringing in more in a day than we are. I mean, people still, whenever I'm down there in Lexington and I'm sitting in the light and somebody rolls down their window and hands, I want to holler, you idiot, don't do that. Haven't you read the news? Ain't you seen what they're doing? And then them cross the street and get in a brand new car and going down the road, some of them, but some of them are homeless. But this is not what this guy was doing. This was his means of living. Right. He had no other way of survival but for someone to carry him, lay him at the gate so that he could beg for alms. And I thought, but this is, like I said, he came to expect this. Right. And no doubt when people went into the temple, they expected him to be there. Right. I mean, this was his spot to be. Right. And no doubt, I don't know if he had a cup or what he had, but I'm in my mind, I'm imagining him with a little tin cup, and he's holding it up here, and he's rattling a couple coins in it, and begging for these alms. But on this day, he never expected Peter and John to come walking by. Right. He went expecting the ordinary, if you would, to happen. But I thought he didn't come expecting something to exceed his expectations. Right. And I thought, I realized that in 1 Timothy 6, in chapter 6, verse 7, it says, "For we brought nothing into this world, and it's certain we carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content." And but I thought, but we have lowered our expectations whenever it comes to expecting things from God. Come on. And I realize every one of us here tonight, we have more than just food and raiment. We all have possessions. We all have things. And I thought, even if you don't own your home, you own the things that's inside of that home. And that goes farther beyond food and raiment. And so we have got things. But I thought, but we look at that, and God has blessed us with those things. Right. And I thought, but we have, like I said, we've lowered our expectations when it comes to what we're expecting from God. Right. And I thought, this man here in verse 3, he realized that it was necessary for him to be there. And but in verse 3 of our text, it says, "And who seeing Peter and John about to go into the temple ask alms, and Peter fastened his eyes on him and said, 'Look on us.'" Mm-hmm. This man was asking of something, but instead of receiving money, he got a command from Peter. Right. Peter said, "Look on us." And I thought, how many times have we went to the Lord with what we thought we needed? Right. Like this man. This man knew that without the alms that he received, he could not survive. He needed this money. And all this man said was, "Look on me." And I thought a lot of times we were expecting things, but what we're needing to do is look on God. Right. We're needing to look to God. And I thought so many times we're dependent upon our own abilities. Uh-huh. Yes. I thought, like I said many times, I've learned a lot whenever I was laying flat on my back for about 3 months looking at the ceiling. And I could just about counted the pieces of popcorn textures on my cylinder, Steve. I mean, it was bad. And I do not like to read. I am not a reader. And Sister Kathy went to the library and she got me a bunch of books. And I laid there and I read 3 or 4 series of books. I mean, because I had nothing else to do but lay there and read. And I began to think about a lot of things. Because all my life, if I thought I needed something done, then I done it. Sometimes I went further beyond what my physical ability was in order to get things accomplished. And now here I am laying on my back looking at the ceiling, 38-year-old, wondering what in the world am I going to do because I've done blowed my lower back out and I can't feel my toes on my feet and all these things going through my mind. And I thought, but while I was there, I began to, more reading, and I began to just talk to the Lord, me and Him. And I realized that there was a lot of things that I was doing, a lot of things that I was expecting of myself, and I thought I was limiting God. And I thought that I realized that God was farther and more than what my expectations was of Him.
Come on.
I thought I had depended on Him a lot.
Right.
I know what it was to bring home a paycheck, and the paycheck not hardly going out far enough to pay all the bills. And so we would take care of the bills, and then there wouldn't be enough money to maybe put just enough gas in the car to get back and forth to work with, and then there would be we had to buy groceries. We had 2 children at home, and I seen how the Lord came by and He blessed me, and I thought we never went hungry, not one time, and our electric never was turned off, our water never was turned off, and I thought God provided for us, and I knew that He was able, but yet I was limiting God because He was further and more able to do anything that I was expecting.
Right.
I thought He was exceeding my expectations. Well, many times we are not receiving what God has for us because we are expecting alms and not following the instructions God gives.
Right.
I thought Sparks made mention this morning of a lady that had the multiple sclerosis, or however you say it, and the MS, and she was and how she claimed it, my sickness, and she passed away. It took her life from her because she had clinged on to it, and I thought I might come down with something, and that would be my sickness unto death in the next little bit. I don't know what God has for me, but I thought, but I do know that a lot of times whenever it comes to those things, we're satisfied with alms.
Right.
I thought whenever I was down my back and I'd come and I thought I would get some kind of relief from the pain and that was running up and down my leg and the pain that was in the middle of my back and down into my hip. I thought, Brother Steve, when I got some relief from that, I was excited. I've got some relief. But I thought, a lot of times we're excited with that. But I thought God can go further and beyond.
That's right.
Really.
That's
So
right.
I went under the hand of a surgeon, and he went in there and he fixed the problem, and I still I limit myself because I realize I don't want to get back into that situation. But I thought, but I feel like God directed and He made the steps to where I could get in and get the relief. But I thought, but a lot of times we limit God whenever He can go further and beyond.
Right.
I thought Sister Sparks. I remember I was just a teenager living at home. Whenever she had the same problem, she needed the surgeon, and she called the same surgeon that done mine, and she didn't have the money and the means, the insurance at the time to get all these things taken care of. And I thought she laid there, and I thought God moved on her. He touched her. He brought her up, and she's able to do a lot more than what they ever expected that she'd be able to do. And I thought, yet sometimes we're satisfied with the alms, just that simple touch, just enough for today. When God is wanting to bless us and give us something to last us for eternity, get us to last us further beyond anything that we're expecting. I hope I'm helping you tonight. I thought, but I thought we need to listen to the instruction that God is giving us.
Right. Oh, yes.
I thought in order to receive more than just the alms. I thought we can read in verse 7 that this man followed the command. He looked upon Peter and he got lifted up. And I thought, we read that ever since this man had been born, he had been carried. And I began to think about that. And I thought Sister Marcia brings a little boy with her, Justin, with her sometime. And sometimes she brings him in a wheelchair. And sometimes she carries him. And because he's 16-year-old, but he's not that heavy. But when she carries him, she puts her arms under his legs and one up under his arms, and she picks him up and she carries him. And I thought this way this man had been carried all his life. But this time, something different Peter tells him, said, look on us. And then he reaches out his hand and gets him by the right hand and lifts him up. And I thought sometimes we get to a state where we're down. We're not able to bring ourselves up again. We feel like that we're needing to be carried, if you would. But I thought if we could ever look and listen to the commands of God, I thought He'll reach down and He will lift us up and take us further and beyond our expectations. I thought this man, as he was sitting there begging for alms, he was expecting somebody to drop some change into his cup. But I thought he got something further and beyond that. God came by, sent somebody by to lift him up and get him up and strengthen him that he was able to go on his own. Right. And I thought, too many times, like I said, we come to God expecting Him to help us one more day to get us by. But if He'll listen to His instructions, He'll bring us up that we can carry on for ourselves. I thought, if we're sitting there and we are begging for alms and we're having to depend on someone else to help us carry through to the next day, then how do we think that we can carry on and to help someone else to be dependent upon us? I thought he expected alms, but I thought he got the healing. I thought too many times the church is expecting alms, and I've heard people say this. You ask them about church, and they say, "I come to church so that I can get enough strength to make it to the next service." And so we need one another, and there's strength in the house of God. But I thought if we're just coming to get enough strength to help us get by and to help us carry on to the next service, then what happens when we run into someone that is needing help? Because we've asked for alms and we don't have enough to reach out and help them.
Come on now.
I thought, Friday night, as the service went on, and I made mention, and I've been thinking a lot about my witness and me reaching out to others.
Right.
And so a lot of times we go out into the world and we run into someone and their sin just gets to us. The grossness of their sin, Brother Jim, is far more sometimes than we can handle. I thought a few months ago, maybe it was now, Sister Kathy and I went to a restaurant in Richmond. Went to Taco Bell. And we were sitting there and we was eating our tacos. And we was just enjoying ourselves. And one of the boys that was working there, obviously the clock on the cash register had quit working. He had clocked in on that clock, and when he went to clock out, Brother Jim, it had the same time of when he clocked in. And that would naturally upset anybody. But he began to use some awful language there in the restaurant, and I began to get offended by it. And not only was I offended because I was listening to it, but my wife was sitting there. I mean, I work out on a public job. I hear things that I don't want to hear, and but she don't. And so she was there, and she was hearing those things. And I had done made up my mind, if he says it one more time, I am going to go up there and I'm going to tell him to shut up. And I'm going to ask for his manager. And I'm going to bring this. And but I'm glad he didn't, because I had done got carnal. See, what happened is I had picked up enough alms to get me through.
Come on now.
But I didn't have enough to reach out and help someone else.
Right.
And I thought, but we need to go further and beyond alms.
Right.
We need to be like this man and get something that's further and beyond
Right.
our expectations.
Right.
I thought when he came to the temple that day and they carried him and laid him, he had no idea that he was going to get up and walk out of there on his own. He didn't have no idea that he was even going to go into the temple. Because if it's my understanding, because he was lame, he could not even go in to the temple.
Right.
He couldn't go in there because of his crippleness. And then he goes walking and leaping and running and praising God. He goes on beyond those beautiful gates. He goes into that place of worship because something happened and it exceeded his expectations for that day. I thought this man had never got his cup and sat back down and asked for alms ever again. He was able to go into the temple. I thought he wants to lift us higher than we think we can go. Oh, this morning we were in the Sunday school lesson and we were trying to teach it. Sometimes I feel like that's all I do is try to teach. And but throughout the lesson, I don't know if I used it this morning or if I just read it while I was studying it. But it made mention of a lot of people that are in the churches that you used to see more out of than what we do now. Right. And I thought, wow, that happens a lot. Yeah. And I thought if we're not careful, and I'm talking to me too, we can all get to that place where we used to do more in the services than what we're doing now. We used to receive more from the services than what we do now. And it's not God's fault. Nope. God has not changed. But what we have done, we have allowed ourselves to come expecting just enough to carry us over to the next service. Come on. Then carry us over to the next service. Yeah. And I thought, but we need to receive more. I thought, I don't want to embarrass him, but back in November, I believe it was, James was in Clay County, and he had no transportation to get back to Madison County. And he called me at work and said, hey, I'm here, I'm out, but I can't get back to Richmond. And so he said, I had nowhere to go. And so I made transportation for him to get there. You know, and I'd already talked to Dad, Bill Sparks, and told him about James, told him what kind of work he was, and I was going to help him. I said, I think I'm going to do all I can to help him. And so he and I he wrote me a couple letters out of him, and I knew that he was wanting help. He was tired of where he was at. And so, you know, and so to make a long story short, I sent a guy up there to get him and brought him back to work, and he got home, and he didn't have no money. All I had on me, I think, was $4. I don't remember what it was. And I said, here, at least get yourself something to eat. I mean, you know. And but you know, make a long story, you know, he never expected what was fixing to take place in his life. Come on. When he called me that, he didn't have no idea that sitting here on March the 11th, he's going to be sitting here at church with us, listening to me preach. I mean, he you know, but things began to take place. Yes. Then he needed somewhere to live and stay to help him get him a place of his own that he could call his. And so we provided him a place to sleep for a while and to help him get up. And you know, and through all this time, we've become pretty good friends. You know, I knew him then. He'd worked for me before, but you know, I knew him, and I'd go pick him up, take him to work. We didn't talk much, you know, just casually, but there was just a bond there. And I mentioned it before, and I told you I've been going to get him to work, and I said, if I ever get a chance, I'm going to ask him to come to church with me. And Brother Sparks asked him before I got to. And I thought, but I'm saying all that because things began to happen. Yeah. He was expecting me to have a job ready for him and things, but things went beyond his expectations. Yeah. Yeah. And I thought, then when he come here, he was expecting to use our generosity for a while, and out of respect, he came to church, and we appreciate that. Yeah. But I thought he didn't expect it to go beyond his expectation. He didn't expect to come here and actually get a relationship between him and God like he's getting. And I thought, but that's what happens whenever when we allow things to help us. You know, he had to allow us to help him. Not to embarrass him, but he had to, you know, he could have said, no, I don't want you to help me. I'll make it on my own. But he realized, hey, I need this help. That's right. And I'm going to accept this help. Yeah. And I thought we put it out, and I'm glad He did. And I thought, but sometimes we do the same thing spiritually. God is here, and He's saying, I see where you're at, and I see where you need to be. So if you would allow me, I will take you further and beyond anything that you're expecting. But instead, we're happy to say, Lord, just give me a few hours. Come on, just let me feel a little bit of touch, and I'll make it on to the next one. And I thought, it's a whole lot better to be lifted up and to walk out on your own than have to be carried over and over. And over.
That's right.
And I see so many that not been there. The Lord want to bless them, and I remember being a teenager and caught up in the things of life and getting involved in the things of the world that I didn't need to be involved with. And then I come to church here or even somewhere else. I mean, I remember when I going to the Baptist church up at Drip Rock. And, things in my life that didn't need to be there. And the preacher, the Baptist preacher, and he just scorched me real good that night. And I'm glad he did.
He was good.
And I went up to the altar and I cried and I prayed. And I came back, but I kept falling right back into those same things.
Come on now.
But I thought one time I got ready. I just got tired. Lord, I'm tired of rattling my cup.
Come
And
on.
saying, give me some alms.
Come on.
Give me some alms. Just to help me just by just one more time. Lord, pick me up
Yes.
that I can walk on my own.
Right.
And I thought sometimes I still, Lord, I need you to pick me up again that I can continue to walk.
Yes.
Not that we're walking by faith through God.
Right.
And I thought He can give us abilities that go further and beyond anything that we have ever expected. So I think it's a song. I hope I've helped you. And I told you when I got up, this is it's very elementary. I know it is. But you got to look who God's dealing with. He's dealing with me. And I'm not no big theologian. But I thought sometimes we just need to look at the simple things. And I thought this is a beautiful story that we can read in the book of Acts.
Right.
I mean, they just got through having Pentecost. I mean, they were on fire. And so then you go over into the 3rd chapter, and they're going to the temple to pray at the hour of prayer. And this man sitting here, I mean, they're really fired up.
Right.
So they're able to go beyond take this man further beyond his expectations. And I thought it's time that we, as church, we get fired up.
Yeah.
So that we can go out into a world that thinks there's no hope
Right.
and take them further and beyond anything that they're expecting. And I thought, we're serving a God that's able. I thought I've been reading and studying and all that when you want to, but I've been watching some YouTube things of some people out witnessing and their approaches about it. And especially when it comes to homosexuals, people like that we look at in disgust. And I thought, they're still a soul. And I thought, if I had a child wrapped up into those things, or if you had a child wrapped up in those things, wouldn't you want somebody reaching for them?
Right.
We would, wouldn't you? And I thought, we need to reach for them because we got a God that's able to go further and beyond anything that we ever expect. As they get us a song tonight, let's come pray.